Ayan Bier has this report from Washington.
Ambassador Harper says one of the reasons the parties in South Sudan agreed to a ceasefire agreement in August is because of the pressure that the U.S. and other international bodies exerted on Riek Machar and President Salva Kiir. Harper, who is hopeful that both sides will form a transitional government of national unity, says any reluctance on both sides to implement the deal could push the Human Rights Council to raise the stakes.
We're not going to take anything off the table. And as you've seen, I think we have ratcheted up the pressure, whether it's through sanctions, individual sanctions. We will continue to look at those tools and see what is appropriate. Right now, we are trying to work with the parties to ensure that they live up to the agreements that they agreed to.
The UN Human Rights Council sets international standards for human rights and monitors and implements those standards on the ground. The Human Rights Council uses research, education, public information, and human rights advocacy to shine a spotlight on atrocities and act as a political force to push countries like South Sudan in the right direction.
We recognize that those are not tools that are going to necessarily be sufficient in every circumstance. And that there may be other bodies that should take additional steps, like the AU. And the AU has tried to address this, and the regional organizations have tried to address this. So we recognize what our role is.
Harper says right now the Council is trying to work with both parties to implement the peace deal. He says the Council will have to decide if additional actions are needed.
What the United States is going to do is we're going to lead efforts to continue to focus attention on South Sudan. And sometimes that has the impact of forcing these countries to do better. We have to have political leadership in South Sudan. Riek Machar and President Kiir have to take a different tack.
The U.S. has donated almost $1.5 billion for humanitarian assistance since the start of the December 2013 conflict. Harper says the U.S. has made a significant investment in South Sudan and expects to see democracy as a return on its investment.
We're as frustrated about South Sudan as anybody. I mean, we were involved in the Troika in creating South Sudan. And so we have a lot of equities in making sure that it's successful. And when I say successful, I mean, is it secure and is it prosperous for the people of South Sudan, not for a handful of political leaders?
Last week's final report by the UN panel of experts in South Sudan cites the targeting and killing of civilians, recruitment of child soldiers, attacks on schools, hospitals, and religious sites, as well as beatings and sexual violence as examples of human rights violations that have been committed by both sides. For VOA News, I'm Ayan Bior in Washington.